Another budget battle brewing in Annapolis.
Outlook is a lot worse for fiscal 27 than it was at the end of session.
As Maryland faces another deficit, this time nearly $1.5 billion.
Do you believe that Marylanders should expect to see more fee increases?
I'm going in depth on the state budget, demanding answers from lawmakers to find out what they're doing to solve the problem and looking into what it all means for you.
Thank you for joining us for this week's edition of Fox 45 News in Depth. I'm Mackenzie Frost. We're taking a deep dive into Maryland's budget crisis with just 2 months to go before the next legislative session. New projections show the state facing another deficit heading to the next fiscal year. And the state's structural deficit is ballooning, as some experts call it Maryland's worst financial crisis in decades. State leaders will soon have to decide what to do, but lawmakers work to close a $3.3 billion budget hole already this year. So we're looking at how this happened and what's on the table to fix it.
The budget outlook is quite a bit worse than was forecasted at the end of session.
A bleak outlook for Maryland as budget analysts start putting the pieces together.
You put it all together and we basically have seen no job growth since January.
Right now, the state is looking at a nearly $1.5 billion deficit for budget year 2027, and the structural deficit is expected to not just grow, but more than double by fiscal year 2028. By 2030, the Department of Legislative Services projects Maryland's deficit could be around $4 billion. Analysts point to policies from Washington as part of the problem.
So bottom line is that, well, it was assumed at the end of session that we would get $300 million a year in general fund revenues from the One Big Beautiful bill being passed. We actually end up with a negative impact of about $71 million in fiscal 27. So it's a $371 million swing.
But ultimately,
2031 will spend $7 billion more than we project to spend in fiscal 27.
So our revenues are actually up, but we're still spending more money to exceed what our revenue growth is. Is that fair?
Yes, I mean, our structural problem is because our revenues continue to grow faster than our ongoing revenue.
Education costs are driving the state toward the fiscal cliff. The state's decade-long, multi-billion-dollar blueprint for Maryland's future is part of the spending concern. This chart shows the blueprint funding sources. You can see the growth in general fund spending as money socked away for the blueprint dwindles in future years.
Even if you froze spending on everything, all you tried to do is do the blueprint fund swap, you don't have enough revenue to fully cover it. So it illustrates that there will be a need for pretty steep cuts across the budget in fiscal 28 and or some revenues in fiscal 28 to bring 28 into structural balance.
I think one of the biggest issues we have to address is the blueprint.
Many Republican lawmakers have been calling for changes to the blueprint, citing a lack of funding. Former Governor Larry Hogan even vetoed the plan, but Democrats in Annapolis voted to override Hogan's veto. Now,
I think we need to finally get some decisions made with the blueprint on how we're going to do it. It is more apparent now as we see the results in classroom education, we see where achievements are, that this is not working for us.
the solution? Well, it depends on who you ask. Right now, Maryland's rainy day fund sits at around $2.3 billion. One option is to pull $815 million from those reserves, but budget analyst David Romans urges lawmakers to use caution.
That does not provide any structural relief, so it doesn't do anything for solving fiscal 28. It also means you've spent that $800 million, so it's not there to help you in 28 with the problem. And it also isn't there if we go into an actual recession, which is certainly a risk with the various federal cuts that seem to be continuing.
Some Republicans want to see deeper cuts to entitlement programs.
When you're in a good fiscal position, you're tending to expand those entitlement programs. We need to go back, scale that back. Maryland is one of the highest percentage states on Medicaid. Again, why is that the case? If we're one of the wealthiest states, unemployment's low, what are we doing wrong that has got us to be so high with respect to where we are with Medicaid? That has to be adjusted as well, too.
Next year is an election year, not just for lawmakers, but for Governor Wes Moore, too. That means the likelihood for broad-based tax hikes is low, but the small business community is concerned. The Maryland State Director for the National Federation of Independent Businesses says they were just saddled with increased taxes and fees last session, and now they will likely have to fight tooth and nail against efforts to tax their hard-earned dollars further.
It's about reducing spending.
We have a way forward.
In 2025, lawmakers implemented $1.6 billion in tax and fee increases to help close the $3 billion budget hole. At this point, do you believe that Marylanders should expect to see more fee increases if blanket tax increases are not on the table?
I don't think that there will be an appetite for the type of, we're going to raise a rate, so to speak, in income tax, sales tax, property tax. Targeted fee increases, I suspect, probably will be part of the original budget. And if they're not part of the original budget, I think Democrats here in Annapolis will try to find ways to jam them in there. And you really have to look at them fee by fee. And we talk a lot about how we want to lift up the least among us, and we want to provide barriers or eliminate barriers for those who live in poverty in Maryland. I don't know how in the heck they can access most of the services and the government opportunities that exist, because we charge you for everything out the wazoo. So that's definitely going to be on the table.
What lawmakers decide to do remains uncertain, but what is not is that the General Assembly session in January will be filled with budget choices for everyone. Joining me now to talk about the budget heading into the next legislative session and what to do with the fiscal year problems is House Minority Whip Jesse Pippy. Delegate Pippy, I appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So during the budget briefing, I watched that, and I know you raised some questions about the Transportation Trust Fund specifically. And as I understand it, the projections that lawmakers received in that briefing did not include specific details about the State Highway Administration audit, revealing serious funding concerns. What do you think is going to happen when that is factored in?
Well, I think that's a major oversight, because the reality is that there was an audit, an independent audit that was conducted that found that the state of Maryland essentially overbilled the federal government close to $400 million. And that money's got to come from somewhere. It ain't going to come from the federal government. So, we're at a situation here where does that get backfilled by the taxpayer? Does that come off of the gas tax? I mean, where does that money come from that was probably already spent that we can't account for? And so that's a major issue.
Looking at what's ahead, overall, what do you and other Republicans in your caucus want to see happen, specifically when it comes to the blueprint, given the fact that we did see those charts and the projections? Really, the blueprint is driving a lot of this deficit in the out years.
Look, we're at a point now where we have no option. The reality is we have no money to pay for this program. It was ill-advised back when it was passed 4 or 5 years ago, and now we're seeing exactly what is happening. Look, it's not all related to the blueprint, but it's clear we cannot afford it. We passed, I should say, the majority party passed the largest tax increase in Maryland history a mere 7 months ago, and here we are with the exact same deficit going into the next legislative session. It's unheard of, and so this program has not yielded the results that we want to see. It's too expensive, and the taxpayers can't afford it.
Yeah, that is fair to say that it's not all the blueprint's fault, but looking at the structural deficit, a lot of it does come, into play when it comes to finding money for the blueprint after the reserve funds have been depleted. Do you think that there should be broad-based cuts to the program? Or I know there was some conversations in previous years about lengthening the implementation to try and spread out the funding for it. What do you think is the best solution?
I tell you what, there was actually an off-ramp amendment that was introduced when this original legislation was passed, and it was not incorporated. And had it have been incorporated, we may not have been in this situation that we're in, because the off-ramp was basically like, look, if our economy is not sustainable, then that spending doesn't kick in. Well, they put that out the window. And so to your point, the low-hanging fruit is certainly the blueprint. That is the easiest thing that we could adjust now that will certainly reduce the negative fiscal impact. There are certain other things that we need to do too, but that is certainly the low-hanging fruit.
Are you concerned at all about dipping too much into the rainy day fund? We heard the warning there from Mr. Romans talking about the bond ratings, and we already did see some concerning downgrades earlier in the year. How much is too much to dip into the rainy day fund?
Well, the Department of Legislative Services is absolutely correct because that's a one-time nuclear option. If you drain that savings account, we've got nothing left. And the projections for deficit are going to exponentially increase. And so he raises some very realistic concerns that if you drain that now, let's say because it's an election year and you don't want to raise taxes, that puts this state in a horrible financial position in the coming years. And so that is probably ill-advised. I think we need to reduce some spending. I think we should start with the blueprint and then go line by line through the budget. We owe that to the taxpayers.
Well, and you bring up something, too, that I think is interesting. Obviously, next year is an election year, so no one will really be in support of raising taxes when they're going to have to answer for it at the polls with voters. But what about the session in 2027, given the fact that if structural changes aren't made, a deficit will likely continue?
I mean, look, it comes down to leadership, right? I mean, if we're supposed to be doing what's best for the citizens of the state, then those decisions have to be made long term. We have certainly seen political policy making, during an election cycle. I hope that the majority party does not try to, let's say, kick the can down the road by not making important decisions now. But as I mentioned earlier, they just raised taxes, the largest amount in our state's history, 7 months ago. And that didn't make a dent into our situation. We are literally in the exact same spot we were earlier this session, and something has to change.
With that, I think a lot of people at home are probably wondering if we already raised taxes more than $1 billion for various fees. There were some cuts made in this year's budget, and yet we still have this deficit. Democrats and some people within the administration will say a lot of this has to do with federal policies in Washington. What really is the driving factor here?
Look, I will disagree in one sense is that, our colleagues to the south in Virginia have as many federal workers. They actually have more federal workers than we do. They have 40,000, yet they have managed to weather the storm. They have managed to end with a surplus, $2 billion surplus. And I think it's because they prioritize the private sector. We've got a lot of changes that need to be implemented in Maryland. We have to do a better job for our small businesses. But look, in the short term, we've got a big problem. And the big problem is we're spending too much money. We are writing checks that we can't afford. We can't cash. And so I think the blueprint needs to be addressed. And then we've got to go line by line through the budget.
Yeah. All right, Delegate Pippy, thank you so much for your time. I guess we'll see you in January when this all begins to be hashed out.
Thank you, Mackenzie.
Over the summer, Governor Moore tried to address the budget issue by cutting the state's workforce and implementing a hiring freeze. His administration axed 500 jobs by eliminating vacant positions and creating a voluntary separation program offering buyouts for some state employees. The governor originally estimated those buyouts could save $121 million over several years, but now the state says it didn't save as much money as originally planned. At the time, critics argued Governor Moore was trying to solve a problem he created in the first place.
So some of those people he hired are now going to have to be laid off.
It's almost a little ironic that Governor Moore has this hiring freeze, offering these buyouts, yet he's the one who added thousands to the state payroll. So he is really undoing the problems that he created.
Governor Moore has long blamed former Governor Larry Hogan for the state's current budget crisis, claiming he inherited a structural deficit from the Hogan administration. When Hogan left office, Maryland had a $2.5 billion surplus, along with Moore said that money was only temporary since it came from a one-time COVID relief payment. Former Governor Hogan, meanwhile, warned the state against what he called reckless spending.
We actually turned a structural deficit, which has been predicted since 2017 and was not addressed by the previous government, and turned a structural deficit now into a surplus.
It would be a mistake for the legislature to use its newly expanded budgetary power to return to the old habits of raiding the rainy day fund or recklessly spending down the surplus.
As we mentioned, last year, lawmakers passed a $1.6 billion in new taxes and fees to balance the $3 billion budget deficit. The state raised taxes on cannabis, sports betting, and snacks and vending machines, along with an increase in vehicle emissions and title fees. The legislature also passed a new data and IT service tax on some Maryland businesses. Governor Moore said the tax exempts industries like AI, quantum, and life sciences, and will help encourage tech growth in the state. But some Maryland business owners we spoke with say it might be enough for them to leave the state.
We're working class citizens. I always joke, as like, if you divide my labor hours divided by my salary, I actually make less than minimum wage.
All of these taxes and fees eventually hit the bottom line. Companies are reluctant to pass it on to the consumer, but sometimes you have to do that. So either you stay and your consumer gets higher prices, or you leave and go to where your money's treated best.
While Maryland is dealing with deficits, surrounding states like Delaware, Virginia, and West Virginia are seeing surpluses. Virginia and West Virginia's corporate tax rates are also under 7% compared to Maryland's 8.25%. According to World Population Review, Maryland ranks as the 7th most expensive state to live in, with its cost of living index at 115.3. Virginia and Delaware's cost of living indices are a little more than 100, putting them much closer to the national average. Still to come, some are comparing Maryland's current financial state to former Governor Martin O'Malley's administration. A political analyst weighs in on what lawmakers can do to dig their way out of the deficit.
Are you guys ready for the Battle of the States to begin?
Yes, chef. This season of Hell's Kitchen goes from sea to shining sea.
Incredible chefs from 50 states.
50 chefs, 50 times the pressure.
You are representing your state. Cook with pride.
Tonight at 8 on Fox 45.
What? What? No way!
The Masked Singer is back!
Hey, Baltimore, November is all about turkeys and cars. Trot on over to Bob Bell Chevy's Black Friday sale and gobble up these savings all month long. Save up to $11,000 on a 2025 Silverado and no payments for 120 days. Come see us or visit BobBellChevy.com.
The attorneys of Cohen, Snyder, and Eisenberg.
Nearly 50 years ago, I started this firm with Bruce Eisenberg with one mission: to help people when they need it the most.
Today, I'm proud to stand by my father as we continue our legacy, fighting for the injured across Maryland.
We're not just lawyers, we're family, and we treat our clients like family too.
Call us at 1-800-INJURED.
Cohen, Snyder, and Eisenberg, the people's choice. Call 1-800-INJURED.
Hold on to every memory this time of year and make it another December to remember, because the greatest measure of the season is how it makes you feel. The December to Remember sales event.
Get special offers on select Lexus NX models.
Thank you. My son's already in the cart.
Bye. I think you're wonderful.
Bring me everything wicked.
The magic of your Wi-Fi at one price for 5 years. Xfinity. Imagine that.
Hey, Baltimore, November is all about turkeys and cars. Trot on over to Bob Bell Chevy's Black Friday sale and gobble up these savings all month long. Save up to $2,000 on a 2026 Equinox with financing as low as 0%. Come see us or visit BobBellChevy.com.
This latest budget crisis is not the first time Maryland has faced financial hardship. During former Governor Martin O'Malley's 8 years in office, tax and fee increases totaled an estimated $1.5 billion. According to the National Association of State Budget Officers, state spending collectively rose by around 33% between 2007 and 2014 under former Governor O'Malley. And the IRS estimates Maryland lost more than $5.5 billion in taxable income between 2000 and 2010. Critics of Governor Wes Moore are comparing his financial policy to O'Malley's, a policy which some argue played a part in Larry Hogan's election.
It's exactly like O'Malley, because when you have a structural deficit and you know next year you're going to have another structural deficit, that means by definition you're overspending. So we're going to come back next year with another structural deficit, and the Democrats are going to say, well, what new lever can we pull to raise taxes on Marylanders?
We've had well over 300 fee and tax increases already in Maryland since Governor Moore took over. This would add more onto that. It's just not sustainable.
It should concern everyone. He's hiding, he's increasing his staff's budget, doing all those kinds of things that feel very much like a king, not like an elected official.
I spoke with political analyst John Dede about how state leaders can address the growing deficit.
Two biggest albatrosses around the state are the blueprint and Medicaid spending. The problem is that the Maryland House of Delegates is very liberal, very Democratic, and have always been reluctant to make major cuts to those things. The good thing for taxpayers is it's an election year, so the chances of tax and fee increases are very slim because it would be too much of a political nightmare to try to do that. Maybe making cuts here and there. I don't think there's going to be one big axe. I think there's going to be a lot of little pieces that get cut in general because it is an election year and no one wants to see huge cuts made, and no one knows at the same time that you don't want to have a situation you can't increase taxes.
So if you can't increase taxes because it's an election year and lawmakers will be hesitant to make serious cuts, what's left?
I think that one thing that is left, unfortunately, that they have said before they don't want to do, but they change their minds a lot, is looking at the rainy day fund, pulling money out of there to do it, because right now you have a situation where the money may not be there. And remember, they gave that 1.4 figure a few weeks ago. It could change by January 15th. And if it changes by that date, you're going to have a bigger problem. And all of a sudden, you're talking about maybe having to come up with more money to do things. So I think that the state has a very serious situation here, and they have to figure out cuts. Taxpayers like cuts. And if you show cuts, even if they disagree with the program getting cut, it shows that you're taking the job seriously.
Republicans have been calling for cuts to the blueprint for years. Is now the time where they might find success calling for bigger changes to the blueprint?
In the last month, I have talked to 4 Democratic candidates running for Baltimore County Executive. I brought up the blueprint to all 4 of them. And basically they said something needs to be changed about it because of the financial situation it's going to throw on counties. They want something changed to be done. They were very nice and diplomatic about it, but they see the blueprint as a major problem.
If they see it as a problem and Republicans see it as a problem, I mean, at the end of the day, the only one who really needs to see it as a problem are the legislative leaders, right? And the governor. Do you think that they will recognize that the funding just isn't there in the out years for this?
They're going to have to schmooze this thing, because when Governor Moore won the Democratic nomination in 2022, the big endorsement he got was the teachers union, and he was all in on the blueprint and spending all this money. So I think what he needs to do now is work with the legislature and work with these advocates to figure out what can be cut to make things fit till the end of the year and to get through this next session.
But what about the year after everyone wins their election? Will Marylanders see potentially more tax and fee increases that year?
Government always works on the 5 minutes to midnight theory, which is basically at 5 minutes to midnight, now we have a crisis. We have to do something. Oh my God. I would anticipate 2027 is where they feel, hey, we got some security. Now we can do some tax increases. We can make some changes there. So I think for Republicans, they're going to have to use the argument next year in 2026. If you're going to vote for Wes Moore, here's what's going to happen. What's going to be the plan for next year? Because I think that Democrats would have to look at tax increases because they don't want to cut their priorities 2 years in a row. 1 year in a row for a hit's enough. 2 years in a row would be terrible. And here's the other reality. They still have another 3 years of President Trump in the White House making mischief on the state of Maryland. So they need to be better prepared for what's going to happen for the next 3 years. And when you have Wes Moore seen as a presidential candidate, Donald Trump's not going to try to make his life easier, which means it's going to be more difficult for the people of Maryland.
John Dede, always appreciate your insight.
Thank you.
We invited budget chairs from the House and Senate for an interview. We did not hear back from them in time for our show. This week, we asked what your message is to lawmakers when it comes to the state budget. We'll take a look at some of your responses right after the break.
Here's tonight's primetime lineup on Fox 45. Brought to you locally by your McDonald's owner-operators.
One day is is not enough. Get Black Friday savings all month long at Nationwide Kia. Kia K4 is just $189 a month. Or get 0% financing for 6 years. And make no payments for 90 days. Now at Nationwide Kia.
It's Black Friday now at Boscov's. Shop early with our lowest prices of the year. Get our Black Friday price on Ashley Cooper fleece and flannel sheet sets. Now just $19.99 for any size. Stock up on your favorite seasonal flavors of Keurig K-Cups. Our entire stock now at 25% off. And don't miss designer folded pajamas. Now just $24.99 from all your favorite brands. Save with Black Friday pricing on men's Sherpa-lined hooded jackets. Now only $14.99. Shop early and save. It's Black Friday now at all Boscov's.
Town Appliance in Owings Mills is your destination for great prices and modern luxury. So whether you're looking for one appliance or an entire remodel, our family-owned store will help you find the performance you need and the style you deserve. Sub-Zero, Wolf, and Cove are leaders in the luxury appliance space and known for exceptional kitchen performance. With decades of experience, we have small-town courtesy with big city know-how. Come to our showroom in Owings Mills or visit townappliance.com.
Meet Jan. She's enjoying a beautiful day outdoors with friends and family. She's also managing her type 2 diabetes by taking Jardiance, the little pill with a big story to tell. You see, once daily Jardiance can help lower your A1C. Jardiance works 24/7 in your body to flush out some sugar. And for adults with type 2 diabetes and known heart disease, Jardiance can reduce the risk of cardiovascular death too.
Serious side effects include increased ketones in blood or urine and infection between and around the anus and genitals. Both may be fatal. Severe allergic reactions, dehydration, urinary tract or genital yeast infections in men and women, and low blood sugar. Stop taking and tell your doctor right away if you have nausea, vomiting, stomach pain, tiredness, rash, swelling, trouble breathing or swallowing. Tell your doctor about lightheadedness, weakness, fever, pain, tenderness, redness, or swelling between the anus and genitals. You may have increased risk for lower limb loss. Call your doctor right away if you have new pain or tenderness, sores, ulcers, or infection in your legs or feet.
So ask your doctor about Jardiance, the little pill with a big story to tell.
Black Friday savings all month long at Nationwide Kia. Buy now and get $10,000 customer cash on select in-stock Kias. Get $700 more for your trade and Nationwide for life at no extra charge. Now at Nationwide Kia.
This week we asked, what's your message to lawmakers when it comes to the state budget? Let's take a look at what some of you had to say. Larissa says, stop raising taxes. We're all poor and struggling to make ends meet. I make $18 an hour, and between taxes and benefits, I lose 30% before I even get paid. Julianne says, cut spending and don't raise taxes or fees. Darlene says, cut Kerwin. But Tom says, put the money back that Hogan left as a surplus and cut spending by 50%. Stop wasting our money. Fully fund public education, from Sue. All right, that's it for this week's edition of Fox 45 News In Depth. Thanks for watching. I'm Mackenzie Frost. Have a great day.